Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery and out here on the bench. As you can see, we've already got a bin and a portion of food to feed these little guys. The system that we're checking in on today has red wigglers in it, and yesterday I was looking at the tracking spreadsheet. 182 days is exactly 26 weeks, half of a year, but not years like this year. Leap years have that extra day. 366 days in this year makes 183, the exact halfway point through the year of 2024 in this case. And these little guys were last fed 11 days ago. They got feeding number 15. The past 12 of those 15 feedings have been not frozen foods. Kind of a little sidestep from what I usually do down here in my worm bins. When I feed my worms, I usually give them stuff that has first been frozen. And in certain things like potato, I mean, it's a game changer. The potato would otherwise just sit in the bins and try to grow and seemingly never break down. But when I freeze this stuff, the worms eat it right up. So the skins take a little longer, blah, 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 whatever. You get the point. But this is something I've never fed any of my worm bins before. I think it's a dragon fruit. My mom bought a couple of these things. I remember when she carved one of these open. It has like this interesting interior with little seeds and stuff. And the other things I had over there were also not frozen. The peel of an orange or a tangerine, and there was also a little bit of cuttings from a pepper, the stem and the inner core, minus the seeds, because my seeds get stowed away for the creation of worm chow. And yeah, I mean, my collection of pepper seeds is coming together, and I'm out of worm chow for the most part. I got maybe a little dusting of it remaining, but I gotta make more, so that stuff's all gonna get used up. Still seeing a good number of springtails, but the material right on the surface is fairly dry from us having only been covered with paper here. Yeah, when things get dry, the things out there in the dry space are a little bit ignored because of their dryness. These little scraps of paper and leaves or whatever it is that's floating out here on the surface. We'll see if we can try to get this stuff right down into the feeding zone, submerged, to give it the attention it deserves after being just sort of ignored for a while there. So we fed down the middle. You saw that coffee filter spread out across the top of the surface here. That was just indicating to us where we last fed, which was down the middle. Since foods were not getting frozen before being fed, a lot of them are still going to be here as leftovers. So this is a part of what they got last time, and the stuff is holding up very good. It shows pretty much no signs of breakdown. And now we're starting to encounter a little bit of worm traffic. The moisture down low seems very nice, you know. I mean, the material's all very crumbly. None of it seems to want to stick together in big mud balls. So that's kind of cool. Let's stick to the routine here of me always just chipping a little bit of this remaining piece of gourd away. And eventually it'll all go, and I'm trying to be really careful because just touching it pretty much results in stuff flying off. But you know what? Before we get too far into this, I'm going to bring my BTI solution in, because I do have my Vermibag Mini where I started seeing a whole bunch of flying insects, almost like a little bit of an outbreak. Here I don't see anything yet. Hopefully we can keep it that way, so I'm going to be bringing the BTI in, if I don't forget, to treat my systems as a preventative measure to keep flying insects from outbreaking here in my systems. This is a little stem of a pumpkin. This is also something I should probably help along, you know, because right there you can see how easily I was able to chip off 2 or 3 fragments of it. But for some reason I just like watching how these things break down on their own. You can imagine this thing was probably pretty good in size at some point in the past, but it's getting to the finish line soon, I think. So I like to try to collect up leftovers from feedings gone by and try to include it with the freshly added foods. I think last time too we tried breaking one of these avocado pits, but it just wouldn't go. It's still super tough. So let's see. Here's an interesting object. The stem of a Brussels sprout plant. I see worms like sticking out of this thing, like thorns. And there's worms hanging out the end of it. But I love how it hasn't cracked open yet. So it's not, or has it? No, I don't think it has. There is leftovers of another one that was placed in here that had broken up long ago when it was much, much younger. But this one's really holding together well. Here's some more non-frozen bits of vegetable matter. It does seem to me like whatever it was that they got last time, I always have a hard time remembering what this stuff is. It fennel, maybe? Obviously not something that I included in any of my recipes because I don't even really know what the heck it is. In fact, as far as I know, I don't like fennel. Anytime I eat sausage or something that has a bunch of fennel in it, I just can tell I kind of wish I had never even bitten into it because it's just such a weird, unusual, and I don't know, to me, unpalatable flavor. So I'm not sure. These little bits of stuff might also be from that. Kind of makes me wonder what to expect from this dragon fruit too. And is it a mistake putting it in here without at least puncturing the side of the thing and to give worms access to the inside of it? So cool how every now and then we just hit this little bundle of worms, making you wonder what is it that they're so excited about. There must be something really good there. A lot of times it almost just seems like it's a scrap of bedding material. Or maybe it's bedding material that's soaked in the juices of some sort of a food that had been fed to them at some point. But I don't know. It is nice to see how busy the feeding zone in this system is. Plenty of worms to work down whatever they get. And it is interesting to me. I mean, a lot of people might be thinking, non-frozen foods, what's the novelty of that? I feed non-frozen foods all the time. Maybe you do. To me, it just seems like a really simple way to keep stuff safe while it's being stored and just sitting around waiting to be fed, instead of it kind of spoiling and rotting away out at room temperature. By being frozen, it sort of locks it in from a breakdown perspective and suspends that from happening. But I think there's another little plus to it, because just the freezing process and thawing process also does something at a very minute cellular level, I believe, to matter, kind of changing the way it all connects up to itself. And it you know, certain things after they've been frozen and thawed out, they just fall apart, whereas they would otherwise stay quite intact. So we created a nice landing pad for our feeding. I was definitely liking the idea of reusing all of this stuff that had sat out here on the surface with all this little debris in it. Get this down at the bottom, get all this stuff that's either dry or kind of not very worked bedding type materials and this and that, get it all right down to where there's going to be a whole lot of worm traffic to keep that stuff moving. So maybe in can come this crazy thing. Do I puncture it at least? I don't know too much about it, how tough it is. I see weird pink inside and now kind of like a creamy no color inside. So that's official. We've given them access, but we'll see how it plays out on its own, you know, without much more help. Next time, if it seems like by not opening it up we've severely hampered its ability to break down, then maybe we'll change that and open the thing up a little bit better. But this way we'll sort of like this thing, just give it a chance at getting broken down by worm traffic only, and not so much by me coming in here and ripping at it and tearing it or breaking it up. And this gourd. Very tempting to break certain things. Other things you try and they don't even want to go yet, you know. I don't know if freezing has any influence on the pits. So, you know what? I do have this replacement feeding zone indicator, so let's give them Just another little treat of bedding, but the bedding I was going to use is going to come floating out on top in the form of a little bit of leafy matter. And for that matter, I thought I'd keep this stuff around and use that as a top coating as well. I know that the material out on the surface is going to be really dry, and then those leaves are going to just pretty much sit there with no action because of the relative dryness. Who knows, maybe a couple worms will just come up to explore, but I'm sure they won't feel very comfortable hanging out in a bunch of dry leaves. But you know, next time we come in here, that pile of somewhat dry leaves out on the surface, I think, are going to blend in so nicely with all the material, kind of give the whole system a nice injection of bedding material throughout. And it'll be nice seasoned bedding too, bedding that has already got all the microbial life living in it, probably already kind of working on breaking the stuff down for us. That's the kind of stuff the worms really appreciate. So it is also nice to see that things are getting a little bit more crumbly here and there. A little bit of clumpiness happening in certain places, but I could see a little further drying by having these flimsy top coverings of only newspaper. I could see a little bit more drying happening here and helping things become a little bit more free-flowing rather than so clumpy. But at times you just have to also accept the fact that a little bit of moisture, you know, isn't a bad thing in the worm bin, you know. It really does help a lot. And I forgot to give them grit, you know. Sometimes I just take the grit and sprinkle it out on the surface. I suppose by being covered in leaves at the end, this grit will probably actually get consumed pretty quickly. So I think they're going to like that. So now, feeding zone indicator, before or after leaves. I believe after would be the proper time to apply it. And let's see, how much do I have here? I could probably do with about this much here. That should give us enough to pretty thoroughly cover the entire system, at least with a nice little light coating of leafy matter, which, like I said, is going to kind of stay dry out here, you know, by being only covered. Oops, sorry, excuse me. Apologies for that little interruption. I usually turn off the ringer on my phone, but since I saw it was the individual who actually provided that dragon fruit for these wormies today, my mom, I figured I would answer. So, yeah, that's really the only thing left here to do is to position this feeding zone indicator kind of as a little tradition right over where we'd normally feed. And, you know, like I said, let's give this whole system a little shot just as a preventative injection, inoculation, whatever you want to call it, with the BTI bacteria. It's really mosquito dunks solution. BTI is the stuff that supposedly helps in situations like this. I mean, I've had good luck with it, so I can vouch for it. It's good stuff. Seems to work. But that's pretty much it here. We're going to stick with the coverings because I like the way things are drying. And I guess every time we blend in a bunch of dry material down into the bottom, although this time we didn't blend in all the dry stuff. We took all the dry stuff we collected and we focused it down the middle underneath the feeding. So perhaps we won't see much of a, you know, a drying effect by blending in dry stuff, but perhaps just by being, you know, covered with fairly flimsy covers like this, we'll see more of the system's moisture leave on its own. So I got a couple things to take care of getting cleaned up, put away, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. That's boring. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.